First contact. The artificial gravity on Outpost Zenith always felt a touch too heavy, as if the station itself was trying to keep Tessa Novak grounded. She adjusted the cuff of her standard-issue gray jumpsuit, fidgeting with the hidden neural interface beneath. Nobody knew about the enhancements, not her engineering team, not her superiors, and certainly not the Valkyrie delegation arriving today. The observation deck thrummed with nervous energy as the alien vessel approached, its obsidian hull catching starlight like a predator's scales. Outpost Zenith was humanity's farthest reach into the Orion Arm, a tentative handshake extended into the vast unknown. This meeting could determine whether that hand would be clasped or severed. "Remember," Captain Jansen whispered, his weathered face tight with stress, "these are warriors, not diplomats. Be respectful, be efficient, and above all, be careful." Tessa nodded, feeling the slight tingle at the base of her skull where the neural augmentation connected to her cerebral cortex. The interface was illegal in 3 systems, experimental in 4 others, and completely unknown to her own people. A relic from her past life as a research subject, it enhanced her cognitive processing and sensory input, abilities she kept hidden beneath an outward appearance of normalcy. The airlock hissed open, and the Valkyrie entered. Their reputation preceded them, a species of renowned fighters, tacticians who had conquered half a dozen star systems before agreeing to an uneasy peace with the Terran Alliance. They moved with liquid precision, armored bodies flowing like mercury across the deck. Leading them was a warrior whose presence seemed to compress the air around him. "I am Drax, second blade of the Valkyrie hegemony," he announced, voice resonating through the chamber without apparent effort. His skin was the color of burnished copper, with faint bioluminescent patterns tracing beneath. Eyes like polished amber surveyed the humans with barely disguised disdain. When those eyes fell on Tessa, they narrowed slightly. "And who is this small one?" Captain Jansen cleared his throat. "Tessa Novak, our chief engineer. She'll be your liaison for system integration." Drax's mouth, a surprisingly human feature on his alien face, curved downward. "You send a maintenance worker to interface with Valkyrie technology." Tessa felt heat rise to her cheeks but kept her expression neutral. "I assure you, I'm qualified to handle the integration protocols," she said, proud that her voice didn't waver. The Valkyrie warrior's dismissal was palpable. "Humans always overestimate their capabilities. Your species is fragile." Something flared in Tessa's chest, pride, defiance, or perhaps the neural interface responding to the surge of emotion. She stepped forward. "Perhaps you'd like to see our engine room? I've prepared the integration modules as specified in your technical manuals." Drax's expression suggested he would rather inspect a waste disposal unit, but he inclined his head. "Lead on, small engineer." The walk to engineering was tense, with Drax's heavy footsteps echoing behind her. Tessa could feel his eyes on her back, evaluating, judging. The neural interface hummed softly beneath her skin, processing data faster than her conscious mind could acknowledge. "Your station's design is inefficient," Drax commented as they entered the main engineering bay. "Too many redundancies." "Redundancies save lives in deep space," Tessa replied, leading him toward the main console. "Not everything needs to be optimized for battle." "Everything is battle," he said simply. As Tessa began explaining the integration protocols, her fingers flew across the holographic display. This was where she felt most comfortable, in the language of systems and code, where efficiency wasn't measured in conquered worlds but in elegant solutions. The Valkyrie technology was complex, beautiful in its deadly precision. As she worked, Tessa allowed herself to sink deeper into the interface's capabilities, processing the alien code structures at speeds no unaugmented human could match. It was dangerous to reveal even this much, but necessary for the task. Drax watched her work, his initial disdain gradually shifting to something less certain. "You understand our systems better than expected," he admitted reluctantly. "I studied your technical specifications extensively," she replied. Not mentioning the neural interface had allowed her to absorb and analyze those specifications in a fraction of the normal time. Their work continued through the station's artificial day cycle, when a power coupling unexpectedly overloaded, sending sparks cascading across the deck. Tessa's enhanced reflexes allowed her to shut down the affected systems before Drax could even react, a fact that didn't go unnoticed by the warrior. "Your reflexes are unusual," he observed, amber eyes studying her with new interest. Tessa shrugged, heart pounding. Good engineering requires quick thinking. As they completed the day's integration tasks, Tessa found herself increasingly aware of Drax's presence, the controlled power in his movements, the subtle shifts in his expression when something surprised or impressed him. Despite his initial arrogance, there was an undeniable intelligence behind those amber eyes. "We will continue tomorrow," Drax announced as the station's lights dimmed for night cycle. "You are not what I expected, Tessa Novick." She offered a small smile. "Neither are you, Second Blade." In her quarters that night, Tessa ran a diagnostic on her neural interface, checking for signs that she might have revealed too much. The readout pulsed green, safe for now. But as she drifted toward sleep, her thoughts kept returning to Drax's amber eyes and the moment when dismissal had shifted to something else entirely. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new integrations, and perhaps a new understanding between them. As her consciousness faded, the interface continued its silent work, processing the day's encounters and the strange, unexpected sensation that had fluttered in her chest when the alien warrior had finally seen her as more than just a fragile human. Hidden strengths. Morning on Outpost, Zenith arrived with the artificial precision of programmed light cycles. Tessa woke before the alarm, her neural interface having processed the day's integration tasks while she slept. She ran her fingers along the back of her neck, feeling the almost imperceptible ridge where technology met flesh. Today would require even more careful balance, showing enough skill to complete the mission without revealing her enhancement. When she arrived at the engineering bay, Drax was already there, his copper skin catching the blue-white glow of the station's lighting. He stood perfectly still, studying the holographic displays of Valkyrie systems. "You're early," Tessa observed, setting down her datapad. "Valkyrie do not waste time on excessive sleep," he replied, turning to face her. His amber eyes seemed less dismissive today, more evaluating. "I have been reviewing yesterday's integration progress." And Tessa moved to her workstation, conscious of his gaze following her. "Your work was adequate," he said, and Tessa thought she detected something almost like approval in his tone. "For a human." She smiled despite herself, high praise coming from the Second Blade. Their work began in earnest, tackling the more complex integration challenges. The Valkyrie defense systems needed to communicate seamlessly with the station's sensors, a delicate task involving two fundamentally different technological approaches. As they worked, Tessa found herself unconsciously slipping deeper into her enhancement's capabilities, processing data streams that would be incomprehensible to most humans. "The quantum frequency modulation is misaligned," Drax said suddenly, pointing to a section of code. Tessa's interface had already flagged the issue. "Good catch," she said, making the adjustment. "You understand human systems better than you let on." Drax's bioluminescent patterns flickered briefly, the Valkyrie equivalent of a shrug. "Know your allies as intimately as your enemies. That is basic strategy." "Are we allies then?" Tessa asked, glancing up from her work. The question hung between them, heavier than it should have been. Drax studied her for a long moment. "That remains to be determined," he finally said. Their work continued through the morning. When a particularly difficult encryption sequence refused to cooperate, Tessa felt Drax's frustration building beside her. On impulse, she reached out and adjusted his approach, their fingers briefly touching on the holographic interface. "Try a parallel processing method," she suggested, ignoring the unexpected warmth where their skin had connected. "Like this." She demonstrated, her neural enhancement allowing her to visualize the complex encryption patterns in ways no ordinary human could. The solution materialized almost instantly, and she implemented it before realizing her mistake. Drax went very still, How did you solve that so quickly? Tessa's heart raced, the interface automatically triggering subtle calming responses to keep her exterior composed. I've worked with similar encryption before. Sometimes fresh eyes see patterns more easily. His amber gaze intensified. No human eyes see patterns that quickly. Maybe you underestimate humans, she countered, forcing a casual smile. Before he could press further, alarms blared throughout the station. The lights shifted to emergency red, and Captain Jansen's voice echoed through the comms. All personnel to safety protocols. Unidentified vessel approaching. This is not a drill. Drax moved with startling speed, accessing the security feeds. A ship, sleek, predatory, neither human nor Valkyrie, was on rapid approach to the station. Scavengers, he growled, a new tone entering his voice, something fierce and protective. They prey on isolated outposts, stealing technology and leaving no survivors. Tessa's enhancement kicked into overdrive, calculating options, risks, survival probabilities. We need to secure the integration we've completed, if they get that technology. They won't, Drax said with certainty, unholstering a weapon Tessa hadn't realized he carried. Return to your quarters, I will handle this. Indignation flared in her. This is my station, I'm not hiding while you risk your life. Something shifted in his expression, surprise, perhaps respect. You continue to defy expectations, Tessa Novik. They moved through the station corridors, Drax leading with predatory grace. The sounds of fighting echoed from the main docking bay. The scavengers had already breached the outer defenses. Tessa's enhancement processed the audio patterns, estimating at least 6 attackers. When they reached the auxiliary control room, Tessa's fingers flew across the emergency systems. Her neural interface connected directly to the station's architecture, giving her unprecedented control. She locked down critical areas, rerouted power, and implemented security protocols that even Captain Jansen didn't know existed. Drax watched her work, his expression unreadable. Your skill exceeds normal human capability, he stated, not a question but an observation. Tessa met his gaze, not confirming or denying. We all have hidden strengths. The moment was interrupted by movement in the corridor. 3 scavengers, humanoid but with cybernetic augmentations far cruder than Tessa's sleek interface. They spotted the pair and opened fire. Drax moved like liquid lightning, his weapon discharging pulses of energy that dropped one attacker instantly. He positioned himself between Tessa and danger, his powerful body a shield of copper and determination. What happened next occurred too quickly for normal human perception. A second attacker fired a weapon that split into multiple energy projectiles. Tessa's enhancement calculated trajectories, identifying one that would bypass Drax and strike her directly. Without conscious thought, she moved, faster than any unaugmented human could, dodging the deadly energy pulse with millimeter precision. In the same fluid movement, she grabbed a maintenance tool from a nearby panel and hurled it with perfect accuracy, striking the attacker's weapon and disabling it. Drax dispatched the final scavenger with brutal efficiency, then turned to her, amber eyes wide with realization. You are enhanced, he said, not accusingly but with dawning comprehension. The moment of truth had arrived. Tessa's pulse raced, the interface working overtime to maintain her calm exterior. But before she could respond, the station rocked with an explosion from the main hub. That discussion will have to wait, she said, turning back to the controls. Right now, we need to save this station. As they worked together, Drax's tactical brilliance complementing Tessa's enhanced capabilities, something new formed between them. A partnership, a trust, perhaps something more. When their hands briefly met across the console, neither pulled away immediately. When this is over, Drax said quietly, his amber eyes reflecting the emergency lights, there is much I would like to know about you, Tessa Novik. The admission carried weight, vulnerability from a warrior culture that valued strength above all. Tessa felt something unfurl in her chest, warm and unexpected. And I use second blade, she replied, allowing herself a genuine smile. As the battle raged around them, Tessa realized that the wall between them, human and Valkyrie, enhanced and warrior, had begun to crumble. What might emerge from those ruins remained to be seen, but for the first time since receiving her enhancements, she felt the possibility of being truly seen and accepted for all that she was. Revelation. The scavenger attack had left Outpost Zenith wounded but not defeated. Emergency force fields contained the hull breaches, and repair drones worked tirelessly to restore damaged systems. Through it all, Tessa and Drax had fought side by side, her hidden abilities becoming increasingly evident with each crisis they overcame. Now, in the quiet aftermath, they stood in the observation deck, stars stretching infinitely beyond the reinforced viewports. The station's crew was occupied with repairs, leaving them in a rare moment of privacy. The unspoken hung between them, heavy as gravity. "Your neural enhancement," Drax finally said, breaking the silence. His voice held no accusation, merely certainty. "It's integrated with your central nervous system." Tessa's hand instinctively moved to the back of her neck. There was no point in denying it now. "Yes." "How long?" he asked, amber eyes studying her with newfound intensity. "Since I was 16, she replied, exhaling a breath that felt like it had been held for years. "I was part of a research program, Orphaned Children with Neurological Potential. The program was eventually deemed unethical and shut down, but by then the interfaces were permanent." Drax moved closer, his copper skin catching starlight. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the back of her neck. Heart pounding, Tessa turned, pulling her hair aside to reveal the almost imperceptible seam where technology met flesh. His fingers were surprisingly gentle as they traced the line of the interface, sending unexpected shivers down her spine. "On my world," he said quietly, "enhancements are marks of honor, not secrets to be hidden." She turned back to face him. "On mine, they make you a science experiment, not a person." Something softened in his expression. "Is that why you concealed your abilities? Fear of how others would see you?" "Partly," she admitted, "but also because of what happened to the others in the program. Some were weaponized, others studied like specimens. I escaped, created a new identity, buried myself in engineering work where I could use my abilities without raising suspicion." Drax was silent for a moment, processing. His bioluminescent patterns shifted in complex waves beneath his skin. "The Valkyrie have a concept," he finally said, "called Enthari, the warrior's true face, shown only to those they trust with their life." Tessa felt something tighten in her chest. "And have you shown anyone your Enthari?" His amber eyes held hers. "Not until now." The admission hung between them, fragile and significant. Drax moved to the viewport, his powerful frame silhouetted against the stars. "The second blade is not just a title," he said, his voice lower than before. "It is a burden. I was engineered from birth to be a perfect warrior, enhanced reflexes, tactical processing, emotional regulation. My entire genetic structure was designed for warfare." He turned back to her, and Tessa saw vulnerability beneath his strength. "My enhancements may be biological rather than technological, but we are not so different, Tessa Novick." Something shifted between them, a recognition, a connection that transcended species and origins. Tessa stepped closer, her neural interface humming with awareness of his proximity. "So we're both experiments," she said softly, "both hiding our true nature." "Perhaps," he replied, "until now." A distant explosion rocked the station, throwing them momentarily off balance. Drax's hand steadied her, strong and sure. Emergency alarms blared once more. "The scavengers," Tessa whispered, her enhancement already processing the incoming data. "They've returned with reinforcements." Captain Jansen's strained voice came over the comms. "All personnel to emergency stations. The main reactor has been targeted. Repeat, main reactor compromised." Tessa's blood ran cold. If the reactor destabilized, the entire station would be destroyed. Her interface projected catastrophic failure within 30 minutes. "We need to get to engineering," she said, already moving. The corridors were chaos, crew members rushing to escape pods, emergency systems failing, sections of the station already beginning to decompress. When they reached engineering, the situation was worse than feared. The reactor core glowed an ominous red, warning symbols flashing across every console. "The coolant systems are failing," Tessa said, fingers flying across the controls. "And someone's locked out the manual override." Drax accessed a secondary console. "The scavengers planted a virus. It's corrupting the core protocols." Tessa's enhancement surged into overdrive, analyzing the virus, searching for weaknesses. "I can counter it, but I'll need direct neural access to the system." Understanding dawned in Drax's eyes. "That would expose your enhancement to the entire station. And possibly fry my brain if the connection overloads," she added grimly. "But it's our only chance." Without hesitation, Drax moved to secure the engineering bay, sealing the doors. "I will protect you while you work." The decision made, Tessa accessed the emergency interface panel and extracted a direct neural connector, a technology rarely used except in the most desperate circumstances. Her hands trembled slightly as she attached it to the hidden port at the base of her skull. "Drax," she said, suddenly needing him to know, "if this doesn't work." He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, his copper hands framing her face with unexpected tenderness. "It will work, because you are stronger than they know, stronger than even you believe." Then, in a gesture that bridged their 2 worlds, he pressed his forehead to hers, a Valkyrie gesture of deepest trust. For a moment they breathed the same air, shared the same space. When they separated, Tessa's resolve had hardened. She activated the neural connection and plunged into the station systems. The experience was overwhelming, data flooding her consciousness, the virus writhing like a living thing through the code. Her enhanced mind raced to counter it, building firewalls, creating patches, fighting for control of the reactor's core functions. Pain lanced through her skull as the interface worked beyond its designed capacity. Through the haze of data and pain, she was dimly aware of sounds of combat, Drax defending her physical form as she fought in the digital realm. The scavengers had breached engineering, determined to ensure the station's destruction. Time stretched and compressed. Tessa pursued the virus through system after system, gradually containing it, repairing critical functions. When she finally reached the reactor controls, a surge of corrupted code attacked her interface directly. Pain exploded behind her eyes, but she pushed through, implementing the final command sequence. The reactor core slowly returned to normal parameters. Coolant systems re-engaged. The station would survive. Tessa withdrew from the neural connection, the sudden return to physical awareness leaving her disoriented and weak. She collapsed, but never hit the floor. Strong arms caught her, cradled her with surprising gentleness. "You did it," Drax's voice reached her through the fog of pain. "The station is safe." She forced her eyes open, finding his amber gaze. Beyond him, she saw the engineering bay littered with the bodies of scavengers, evidence of his fierce protection while she worked. "Your secret is safe," he added, nodding toward the neural connector, which he had already detached and hidden. "I told the approaching crew members that I accessed the override codes through Valkyrie methods." "Thank you," she whispered, strength slowly returning, "for understanding." His bioluminescent patterns glowed brighter, a display of emotion she was only beginning to comprehend. "Understanding is just the beginning, Tessa Novick." In the days that followed, as Outpost Zenith rebuilt and the alliance between humans and Valkyrie strengthened, something else grew as well. A connection between a human woman with hidden strengths and an alien warrior who had learned to see beyond appearances. When the time came for the Valkyrie delegation to depart, Drax found Tessa in her quarters, packing her own belongings. "You're leaving the station," he observed, surprise evident in his voice. She nodded. "Captain Jansen has been reassigned, and with him goes my protection. It's only a matter of time before someone connects the reactor incident to me." Drax was quiet for a moment, his amber eyes thoughtful. "The Valkyrie hegemony has need of engineers with unique talents, particularly those who understand both human and Valkyrie systems." Tessa's hands stilled over her bag. "Are you offering me a job, Second Blade?" I am offering you a place, he corrected, stepping closer, where your abilities would be honored, not hidden, where enhancements are seen as strength, not aberration. The implications hung in the air between them. This was more than a professional opportunity. It was a new beginning, a chance to live without hiding. "And what about us?" she asked, finally giving voice to the unspoken. This connection that neither of us expected. Drax's copper hand reached for hers, their fingers intertwining, a bridge between worlds. The Valkyrie believe that those who fight side by side, who trust each other with their true nature, forge bonds stronger than blood or birth. "We don't even know if we're biologically compatible," Tessa said, a smile tugging at her lips despite the seriousness of the moment. "There are many forms of connection," he replied, his amber eyes warm with promise. "We have time to discover them all.